Welcome, do-it-yourselfers, to another video from GeekDIYMechanic. This video is part of the General Car Concept series, so the intended audience is the novice and beginning do-it-yourselfer. We're going to talk about what goes round and round on your car. Well, a lot of things go round in a car. In this particular case, we're going to talk about wheels and tires. Again, this is going to be introductory information shared in this video. Future videos will build upon the information provided. The reason for this video was my daughter was talking about one of her friends needing new tires, and she didn't know the difference between wheel and tire. And then we started talking about it, and I found out that that this is probably information a lot of people would like to know. So first off, the wheel is the rim. The tire is the rubber portion that's installed on the wheel. Well, there are also different kind of wheels / rims. The performance wheel on the left, if you notice, it looks nicer. It's made of a metal alloy, or a metal that's more even and stronger. It's also more open, and that openness is not just for looks. It actually allows air to access and get at the brake system, but that's in another video. So there's reasons why they're that way. If you look on race cars, they're open, right? Why is that? On the right is more of just a standard metal stamped, welded together wheel. Well, most people don't really like the look of that wheel on the right. So they came out with an idea called a hubcap. And you'll see these on the side of the road, like over here. And the hubcap goes over the wheel to make it look like a performance wheel. But what do you notice? The air can't flow as well as a performance wheel. But again, like for a sedan, you're not braking and accelerating and all of that, so you don't need that. But I just wanted to let you know the origins of, hubcap and wheel and performance wheel. What's the difference? The observant viewer would have noticed wheel weights on those on the wheel, and those help allow the wheel to spin when it's revolving very quickly. So what happens is when you purchase new tires, they take off the old ones, they remove the wheel weights, put on the new tire, and then balance the tire and wheel together. They need to be balanced together so they can spin at a high rate of speed without any wobble. That is why they are needed. Well, tires, I'm hoping after this video you will be able to look at tires, walk through a parking lot and practice. And this, you don't really got to stare at a tire to see, but a tire can tell you remaining life, inflation history, if there's alignment issues, and or suspension issues, just looking at tires. That is why once you learn these skills, when I'm purchasing a used car, I don't like to see new tires on the car, because they can hide all of the information about the car anyway that I may want to know, like alignment issues or suspension issues, or how well they maintain their car. Well, let's see how we can learn this by just looking at the tire. The first thing is the remaining life of the tire. A lot of people like to use the penny and the Lincoln head. That's great. Another is the wear bar. Tire manufacturers put in this wear bar. You'll see it right here. These actually still have the knobbies on it, but yet if you look, this tire doesn't have much more life. How do I know that? Because the tread is almost even with that wear bar. when it reaches that wear bar, the manufacturer says replace them. So that's what the wear bar is. Now, looking at how the tire wears can tell you a lot. In this case, the middle tread is more worn than the outside treads. What causes that? That's when the tire is overinflated. The reason it does that is it causes the tire to bow. I'm exaggerating here with the mouse, but it bows, therefore more of the middle of the tire touches the pavement and therefore wears quicker. Conversely, if it's underinflated, what happens? Since there's the sidewall keeps this outside strong, but there's not enough air, the middle of the tire bows in, therefore the outside of the tires wear more. Now, let's assume it's uneven wear on the tire. If it's the inside or outside of the tire, that would imply some sort of alignment issue. Another thing you want to look at is if you see scalloping, which would mean, for example, let's look here. Scalloping would mean maybe this one's worn, this one's not, that's worn, this one's not. In other words, it's almost like every other thread patch. And that could be caused by alignment issues or a bearing issue or something like that. I suggest you take it in and get looked at. Many times people don't know how much to inflate their tires. On most cars I've seen, on the door jamb, driver's side door jamb, there's a sticker. And the sticker will indicate the size of tire. That's an advanced series. Size of the tire in this case is P255/70R16. We'll go into that later in another video. It's more advanced. But if you look right here, it shows the front tire inflation, 29 psi cold. And then it also shows the rear at 32 psi cold. So note that the front and rear may have different specifications for tire pressure. In addition, notice it says cold. Why cold? Well, as you run the tire, it warms up. It has to, right? It's friction on the road. Friction causes heat. Therefore, the air gets warmer. What happens to warm air? It expands. Therefore, it would have more pressure. So again, you should test your tire pressure when the tires are cold. I like to do it like in the morning. I get up and I test my tires on the weekends and inflate them and make sure they're all at the right specification. Again, test them cold. Well, how do you inflate tires? With what? Most people are used to using air, but a lot of cars now have this green cap or some sort of green cap on them. What does that mean? That means they're filled with nitrogen. This was actually technology pulled down from racing, which actually a lot of things from actually so much of the racing is very important to cars. I digress here, but you really should support racing because that all the safety and all the things they learn are moved down into the passenger car. So that's why they race. They get their name out and they also learn what works. This is one of them, nitrogen. The reason nitrogen is good is it has less water content in it. Why does that matter? Well, water would cause, because if it warms up or gets colder, would change the pressure in the tire. And race cars are going, what, 100, 150, 200, dragsters 300. Well, that would make a big deal in their tire pressure. So that's why performance cars use nitrogen. How do you know? They have the green cap. So I suggest if you have a green cap, you don't fill it with oxygen, atmospheric air. I suggest it's going to cost more, but you go to your tire shop and have them top it off with nitrogen. It's a process to take a tire that used to have atmospheric air in it, and move it to nitrogen. They have to make sure to pull all the moisture and all the air out of it. Otherwise, you don't gain anything. So it's a bit of a process. It can cost more, and if you have a performance car, it's probably a good idea to get use nitrogen. TPMS. A lot of modern cars, they tell you when a specific tire is low on pressure. That's for safety, and it also helps with economy. If you don't think it helps with economy, take your bike out, remove 5 psi and climb a hill. Put that 5 psi back in and climb the hill again. You'll notice a huge difference. Well, same on your car. What I'd like to note here is that these TPMS systems have a transmitter in the tire. It's usually the valve stem. Valve stem is where you add either the nitrogen or atmospheric air, right there. And that has a transmitter. And therefore, since it transmits, it has a battery. The life expectancy of those is about 100,000 miles. In addition, when you see your TPMS come on, make sure to also check your spare tire. That also has a transmitter on it. So, in other words, when you fill up your tires, make sure to do at least 5. I'm assuming you have 4 and a spare. Make sure you have them all. Well, since I said the word spare, that's a perfect dovetail into this. Some cars have full spares. Some cars have a donut spare. Why does it matter? Well, a full spare, you could run like your other tires. It's a full spare. It's probably the same exact specification as your other tires. Donut, not so much. When you see a donut on a car, it looks very different. The wheel itself tends to be larger and the tire itself is smaller. In addition, it has a smaller tire patch, less tires touching the road. It also doesn't have such a great tread on it. That's why it's temporary, and it also usually has a limited top speed, usually 55 miles an hour. The goal of this tire is to allow you to drive to get your other tire, your normal tire, fixed. It's not a permanent change. Whereas a full spare, you could continue driving. It may not look as nice because it may not have the hubcap or the same wheel, but at least it can get you there. So remember, if you have a donut spare, drive no more than 55. Again, it's in your owner's manual, but I would suggest not driving more than 55 and try to immediately go to a mechanic, gas station, tire facility and get your original tire fixed. Well, since we're talking about a flat tire, so many people have called me and asked, oh my gosh, I got to nail my tire. It's in the sidewall. You can't patch a sidewall damage on a tire. You can patch the tread. Tread is what touches the ground, but not the sidewall. And they go, oh, this guy's saying I need to change 2 tires. They trying to rip me off? No, they're not. Not necessarily. If your tires have good wear on them, they're aged, or they don't have that same type of tire, it's a good idea to have the same type of tire and age on the same axle, front or rear axle. If that doesn't make sense to you, go out, play basketball, put one foot in flip-flops and another in basketball shoes, and tell me how you do. I really hope you don't do that because you're probably going to hurt your ankle in the flip-flops, to be honest with you. Anyway, that's what it's like on a for an automobile. You need the tires to match. People often just put on their lug nuts. Lug nuts are what hold the wheel onto the automobile. You actually want to torque spec them for multiple of reasons, but to be just general, you want it so they're even pressure on the car. That way one is not more than another. And the reason why you care is you can warp your rotor or drum brakes. This basically you can cause issues. So you want to first make sure It's evenly torqued. Well, how do you evenly torque something? This is a thing you're going to learn on many things in the car when you install it. You do it in a star pattern. What's a star pattern? Let's pretend we start at this lug nut here at 11 o'clock. That's the first one. Now I'm going to go across it. So I'm going to torque spec that down to whatever it may be. Remember, you would get that from the owner's manual or your shop manual. Then you do the one across from it, and then the next one's going to be across from that. And then the next one across from that. Then the next one across from that. And then what I do is I do it again. I start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. Why? Because as you're pushing that wheel on the tire, maybe one was caught on the thread and it pushes it back. And I go all around and make sure it's torqued. How to torque we'll do in another video. Maybe I'll put the link here when I create that. Teach you how to properly torque a nut or a bolt on your automobile. Again, this is called the star pattern. Well, this concludes this video. At this point, you should understand the following. The difference between the term of wheel and tire. Difference between a wheel and a hubcap. Why do wheels have weights on them? How can you tell the inflation history? By looking at, remember, the treads? How can you tell if there's alignment issues? Where do you look to get the tire pressure? The appropriate tire pressure for the car. When should you test the tire pressure in your car? The difference between nitrogen and atmospheric air. What is TPMS? Full spare versus donut spare. Why should you torque your lug nuts? How do stars relate to torquing lug nuts? Whew. That's it. Good job. Thank you for watching. I hope you found the information helpful.